Hey Matthias, is your floor flat and without cracks?
And I don't know. You mean at home or on the shop floor?
On the shop floor.
Well, that's a very good question. I don't know.
This is one very important thing to consider when implementing mobile robots.
And since these things do not come automatically to you, we decided to dedicate one full episode on discussing things you should consider before you select your mobile robot.
Automation Awakenings, your weekly dose of best practices for logistics automation.
Yes, welcome to all of you and welcome Matthias to our office studio again. Again with video, and I think we are getting more and more used to it. At least I feel already a little bit more confident with all of these cameras and light here in our studio, right?
Yeah, totally. It's a special experience, but as with all things in life, you get used to it.
Exactly. Like with mobile robots implementation. And today we're going to talk about floors, about cracks, about humidity, and what are important factors to think about before checking the specification sheet. Because what usually happens, you have a look on what you need, and then you have your 3, 4, 5 important points. You check the data sheet of the mobile robot, and you think, okay, I'm fine. Everything checked. It's fulfilling my requirements. And today we would like to give you some more ideas, some more categories, what to think about when implementing a mobile robot. And I would start with the physical world. I mean, these robots should run in your environment, so it will be physical. And when we think about your environment, what comes to your mind the first?
Well, now that you said it in the introduction, for sure floors, for sure humidity, for sure dirt, and for sure sun and sun reflections you would have.
Great, these are already several points. Let's start with humidity. I mean, the humidity can be normal, then you don't have to consider much. But if you are living in a part of the world with a high humidity rate, you need to take care if this is fine for your mobile robot.
Because what would happen to it? I mean, say I'm in the jungle in Brazil, right, with humidity of 95%. What might be the issue?
There are two problems that can occur. First is, of course, technology doesn't like humidity at all. So all the little PCs inside, the computers inside, might be affected by humidity. If there's a display, could be broken faster. And second are the wheels and the traction of the wheels and how they are behaving. I mean, there are other factors which are even worse, but humidity is also something you should consider.
Understood. Out of this environmental, say, reasons or considerations, is there something that is most important? So, I don't know, is dirt a bigger showstopper than heat, than humidity? Do you have any gut feeling for it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the first and most important topic is your floor. And
Okay.
dirt is a nightmare for any mobile robot. The smaller the wheels, the worse it gets, of course.
Okay.
And dirt is one thing, and other thing is that you need traction with your wheels. So as soon as you have oil, mist, all of these lubricants that might be in the air that fall down on the floor and make it slippery are a nightmare, because the robot just might not continue running. That's pretty obvious that you have a problem then. But it might be even worse if the robot is based on odometry. Yeah, it needs the correct wheel turning rate
Oh, yeah.
to know where it is.
Right.
I mean, always in
Yeah.
combination with the sensors, SLAM, and so on. But many, especially AGVs, rely also on the odometry. And if the wheels are turning faster, it doesn't fit to the data what they are getting from the sensors, and they might, just stop with an error message.
I didn't know that, actually. That's interesting.
Yeah, it might get even worse. They can even move or drift, like what you like to do with the car in winter is very bad with a mobile robot. Because if they drift and lose their usual track,
Yeah.
they usually stop, especially AGVs. I mean, AMRs might find their position again, but AGVs, they really don't like to be out of their known route.
Understood. So that's for the environment.
Yeah.
I would continue with something which is very close to the environment, which I would call periphery. So, in my top showstopper in some cases is bad Wi-Fi connection.
Oh, yeah.
Nice and easy.
Unfortunately, all too often we find this in our projects. And we are in the 21st century and still Wi-Fi is a topic. Can you believe that?
Now I can. After years of being in this field, I've seen these cases here and there, and it's just a pity because it's a quite easy thing you would feel, but it doesn't seem to be that easy. So that is something you should also consider before you go and buy a mobile robot.
And please check that the Wi-Fi connection is really available in all areas where you plan the mobile robot to run. And think about areas, for example, charging areas. Areas where the robot might only be going occasionally, especially in case of AMRs, where you maybe not predict 100% the route.
Yes.
And there are always some edges of the wireless area. And if the mobile robot just starts to go around or pass by an obstacle, and exactly in this little corner you don't have Wi-Fi, it might stop.
Yeah. So periphery, for sure, another topic. I would continue with safety. And we have the famous CE certification that, at least here in Europe or in Germany, where we are located, is one of the must-haves, right, Olli?
Yes, that's right. And the CE certification also gives you the information that all components of the mobile robot have a CE certification. Because you're not allowed to use components without the certification in a CE certified robot. So as soon as the whole device gets it, you can be sure that everything what is inside is also certified.
That's interesting. But just for my understanding, I'm not as close to the hardware topic than you, but could I implement robots that are not CE certified if I take the risk as a, let's say, a business owner? I have my factory and I just decide to use those non-certified vehicles, or is this breaking some kind of law?
You would break the law, actually.
Okay.
And if nothing happens, nobody knows, right?
Of course.
But if this is the basis how you run your business, I would say that's questionable. But if something happens and you have a device without this certificate, there will be a lawsuit against you and you will be held completely responsible of the accident.
Understood.
And I mean, it's like driving your car and drunk, right?
Yeah.
Nobody will help you. If something more severe happens, then you will go to jail also.
All right. So that's bad. So guys, always ask for the CE certification
Yeah.
when you talk to new suppliers, and make sure they really have one, because there is different, I would say, labelings that are promoted here and there, but it needs to be CE, and in the best case, it's also certified by a third party, right? Which confirms that this CE certification is really applicable.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you check the price list, also make sure that these prices are for the device with the certificate, because sometimes we have customers who happily find cheap devices somewhere on the market, but usually there are two versions of it, with and without. And of course, the one without is much cheaper because they can use all kind of components
Yeah.
then. So please make sure you have the right price list.
Totally. Maybe second aspect of safety, width of pass. Ollie, do we have anything that is considered as a standard or as a rule?
Yeah, there are different, let's say, international and national standards. Just for today, for this podcast, I would give you a very simple recommendation. To the left and to the right, you should have 50 centimeters of space next to your mobile robot.
Okay.
Then you are on the safe side. If people are involved, of course, or
Yeah.
you cannot guarantee 100% that nobody will be
Okay.
on this path. I mean, if yes, it's different. You can also narrow it down, and that's not an issue. But please think about if you can really ensure that no pedestrian will quickly cross the way and so on. And I would say 99% of the cases, you cannot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
How? I mean, if the AGV is running inside of a cage, you don't need to take care of it. But usually the AGVs run somewhere where also people might be. So 50 centimeters left, right, you're on the safe side.
Understood. What else do we have?
Yeah, well, take care if you are ready in terms of IT security.
Mm-hmm.
That's also a typical thing. Now, in our world of cyber attacks and cyber crimes, you need to make sure that your mobile robot can be introduced within an environment which is safe, which has no connection to the internet, or at least a good firewall. If you have the right knowledge to run these robots, because at the end, these are devices which drive inside your plant, inside your warehouse. They can even sometimes they can change their routes. And imagine somebody starts to control your robot and deactivates sensors. I mean, that's really worst case now.
Yeah.
Usually, it's also by the manufacturers programmed that you cannot deactivate certain sensors, so it's impossible that it runs against the wall or another person. But in IT, everything is possible at the end.
Yeah.
So make sure you have the infrastructure and experts available to implement these devices in a safe way.
Yeah. No, totally. That's one of the huge reminders, I would say. I would continue with commercial aspects.
Mm-hmm.
And
You need the money, right?
yeah, you need the money. Well, there are cases where people, hear about AGVs or AMRs. They are totally excited about it, excited about hardware. Maybe they're a bit techy, and they would just go and buy one and hope that it's going to solve all problems. And that, of course, they have a great business case with this robot. And in some of the cases, this is a huge disaster then, because, and this is why I picked up this category, you should definitely know and understand your use case first. So make sure you're able to describe it. also make sure you're able to define what you expect from the robot to do or not to do, and write all of this down in a specification book. So you have a base which you can take and talk to different suppliers. And while talking to them, you can also start negotiating prices, because you have a very, very clear requirements list towards this robot. And once you talk about prices, of course, you're able to do your math and calculate the ROI. And I would always recommend to base your decision on a ROI calculation when you consider to go for a mobile robot.
Yeah, absolutely. And Matthias, you touched a very crucial point now, and that's a specification book. As you know, in every consultancy we do, we emphasize the importance of this paperwork to be done, because it's a must. You are on the safe side regarding negotiations, prices, and especially afterwards, it's very clear what you are expecting from the device to do.
Yeah.
And if it's not performing like that, you have all the rights on your side. And so please take care and to write it in a proper way. And if you are not sure how to do it, ask some experts to help you. And I think it's worth to do a episode on how to write a specification book, right? For sure, it's worth it.
Absolutely agree. So I've been writing specification books the last couple of years in the software area, and it's a pain in the ass, I know.
Yeah.
And no one really enjoys writing it and fine-tuning it and aligning it with other parties to get to a mutual version. But it's so important, and it gives you so much control over the deliverables of your project. So make sure you have a specification book.
Yeah, maybe it's a pain to write it, but you know how good this feeling is when something goes wrong and the supplier says, well, this was not clear to me. And then you can pull it out and you say, please read page 37. Yeah, in this paragraph. And it was clearly said that the robot has to do this and that. And then it's easy to negotiate, rework, updates, whatever. You can also give the robot back very easily.
Yeah, that's the true boss move.
Absolutely.
So do your job and have your requirements together in one place, and make sure to bring it to all of the price negotiations and all of the discussions you might have after go live. All right. Next one, people management, change management.
Yes, another big topic, and I think we could spend several episodes on that. Maybe for now, please consider change management. Yeah, this would be important, a prerequisite, which is very important. Don't think that this will be done automatically.
Yep.
Introduction of mobile devices, mobile robots within your company will lead to questions, to fears. People will see maybe risks. You have to address them before the project started and not when they are already running.
Or deployed.
Or deployed, yes.
That's even worse.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And let me just add to this point. So here in Germany, we have quite strong labor unions, worker unions. And surprisingly for me, actually, is to see that they are not too, let's say, too afraid of these innovations, which you would expect normally. So even in contrary, I see them understanding the point of automating, and I see them understanding also the need to do it. But, and this is where I circle back into your argumentation line, make sure you involve the workers' union as early as possible in your project. And that's going to give you the best chances of convince them that your mobile robots project is really bringing a benefit to the company.
Yeah, this brings me to stakeholder management in general. The Workers' Council is a very important stakeholder in your project. Absolutely. I can only fully emphasize this. And then, in general, you should think about who else will be required, involved, or somehow touched with your project. And there's some obvious parties like facility management.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have to implement wires, electricity, other topics. And there is your safety engineer. And this is also a similar point with your workers' council. The safety engineer will have clear questions which needs to be addressed. But if you address them from the beginning and you involve this engineer in your project, you will go along together, you will solve these issues, but nobody likes to be involved when at the last step, right?
Yeah.
When the robots are there and you have some open questions to be solved, and then you ask
That's
this
worst
person.
case.
That's worst case.
That's worst case.
Plan this in a proper way from the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
2 last clusters I have. Software.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah, and we shall not dive too deep in this episode into it. I'm just emphasizing that you have to ask your question before you start to buy your first robots on where you want to go with your automation strategy. So make sure to ask yourself the question on how many different mobile robot suppliers you want to see running in your plant in the future. And if it's more than one, I would highly recommend to consider a fleet management system, or a master control, as we call it, and to make sure that the robots you buy are VDA 50/50 compatible, so that you are able to connect these different fleets to the master control system and orchestrate those different fleets, which in most cases use the same aisles.
Yeah, absolutely. And in the summary, I would say, start small, but think big. Because if you forget to think big, the small steps might go into the wrong direction.
Yeah,
And then you have to restart again.
exactly. Or replace the robots you bought, which are not compatible with VDA standards, for example, and they cause a lot of headache, simply. And then last one, and that's maybe also a very good outlook towards the next episode, which is going to be very interesting, is the topic of supplier selection, Olli.
Oh, yes. As you know, there are over 500 suppliers available at the moment worldwide. We see that consolidation will come, but not yet. We are still in the explorative phase of AGVs and AMRs. And to select the right supplier, there are several questions to be answered and several things to be checked. And again, I can only say that we need to do another episode on that, because it's a huge topic on its own.
Yeah, and that's a great spoiler already for episode 9, in which we're going to cover the best questions to be asked to a mobile robots supplier when being on a fair. Right, Olli?
Yes, absolutely. I'm looking forward to this episode because I still remember being lost on such a fair, and these sales guys, they tell you a lot of cool stories and you're overwhelmed. And we will give you the right questions for the next fair to be asked in the next episode. And for today, I think we touched already pretty interesting and crucial points, what to consider before starting your mobile robots project.
And now before ending this episode, very quick recap of what we said. So we started off with the topic of environment in general.
Then the floor without cracks, which should be flat.
Exactly. Then we moved into the safety aspects that are to be considered.
Yeah, also data security aspects.
Periphery, like Wi-Fi, very important. And we, after that, moved into the commercial aspects that should be covered or considered before making your move.
Yeah, you should have a use case and a business case. And you should think about all stakeholders that might be involved in your project.
Exactly. So that led us to the people management and change management aspect. And we rounded off talking about software or thinking big already in the beginning of your automation journey with mobile robots. And we rounded off talking about supplier selection, which we're going to discuss in some more detail next Monday. It was a pleasure to have you on board. We are really looking forward to this next episode because it's a really exciting topic and really nice checklist basically you can use when walking a fair or visiting a fair. So I'm looking forward to it, and I hope you too.
Yes, then I would say hear you next Monday.
See ya. Take care.
This was another episode of the Automation Awakenings podcast. Visit us at automation-awakenings.com.